New.
What was the price of Bitcoin at the time when you were buying?
So it was fluctuating over the year, right? So there's some that were like 35. There's some that had gone down to 30 in the 29s, 28. I think the lowest I had gotten it for was maybe 25 or 24. The highest was about 41, 42.
Okay, that's not that bad.
Yeah.
I know people who bought in at 60.
Oh yeah. No, I hadn't bought in that high.
Yeah, I know people who had bought in like really like crazy.
Ethereum is my money maker though, because I bought that when it was around 900 the first time around, and then second time around 1200.
And what's it at right now?
I think it's still above that. I think right now it's
I know Bitcoin like it has hit like 18 grand, which is like it's kind of insane if you think about it. 18.
Bitcoin. Oh no, yeah. Right now it's at 19.
I
Right.
saw that the other day. That was crazy.
Ethereum's at
It's like
13.
20.
Yeah, even in this, yeah. So
Yeah.
you have a great cost basis for that.
I mean, still though, like, no, like the amount everything has crashed. You know, it's insane.
well, it's gonna go down pretty, a lot further.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's gonna keep going.
Yeah.
Like I've been seeing these, everyone's been posting it. It's almost like some doomer stuff going on, but like online. But it's like side by sides of the 2008 market conditions and like 2022,
Mhm.
and yeah, it's like a mirror image of each other, right? So,
They're saying that next year is the beginning of the recession. That's what I've been seeing all over social media and different memes that have been coming out and stuff. It's like 2023 is going to be the start of the next major thing.
yeah, I've been hearing a lot
Damn.
like the
Yeah.
actual thing's gonna start later. Even though,
Yeah.
like for me, I mean, honestly, like in my estimation, we've been in a recession probably since March, right? And
Yeah.
like right now, like this housing thing, it's not coming to a head, but it's pretty bad out there, right?
Oh, yeah.
And like right now, we don't hear about it because like the media is until November, right? It's just like constantly. There's so much stuff on the news cycle. They're not even talking about the conditions in like the less in the middle America, right? And not, I mean, I've always lived in New York or like in a big urban city.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not very well versed in that as well. But whatever understanding I have of like Kansas, Missouri, those kinds of areas, it's hit the fan a long time ago already, and now it's just gonna keep on getting worse. But
100%.
yeah, no one's talking about it. But I mean, hey, if you're buying puts on the market, good job. Like then you're doing it right.
No.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't see like with crypto the way it is right now. I don't see how unless you're a big whale with a lot of money, it'd be a very
Exactly.
scary thing to get into right now.
I'm a little fish. That's what the whole point of crypto was an experiment last year. I was like, let's just see what happens, right? But nothing. I mean, even though I'm down, I don't even know how many 100% points. Like, it's okay because my portfolio is diversified. That's the key. If one of the things starts to go down, something else is going up. Your mood doesn't change. You don't look at crypto. You don't like, you're not sad about that when you have property. You have other things as well.
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah.
And
Honestly,
that's one thing that I've been doing the most in. Probably my most investment right now. The most I have is in real estate. Is in property. I'm
Okay.
trying to buy land.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's good.
That's the closest thing I'm at to. And
that's always a good
Really good.
idea
Yeah.
to scale into, right? As opposed to the stock market, like if you don't have the staying power and you're like trying to start like trading, for us like retail traders,
Mhm.
right? Like we're like, oh my god, like watching it. Forget every day. You're like, hey, I'm going to invest money, and now I'm watching that every day, every couple of hours,
Mm-hmm. You have
and you have to think, well, I mean, yeah, I mean, as in like we're not accustomed to like how you're supposed to be trading, right? And I mean, neither are like the people who actually have the money. They have people doing it for
You guys
them
are
professionally.
pioneers.
brokers,
Crypto
yeah.
trading is a brand new thing. Brokers and trading for the stock market have been around for a very long time. Compared to crypto, this is the first, literally the first generation to get into crypto trading. So what are the rules? When does it go up and down? You guys are the ones figuring it out.
Well, what do
That's
you
true.
think though
Yeah.
is the future of it? Like given the current conditions, but let's say in the next year we see a continued downtrend, right? If you're seeing like Bitcoin, let's say right now it was at 18, 19
Mhm,
grand. If
mhm.
you're seeing it back at 12, right? I don't know. What do you think is the future? Then you think it's it's I know like at 60 people are predicting, hey, we're gonna see Bitcoin at 100,000
Mhm.
and Ethereum is gonna
I would
become
love
like
that.
a counter currency of sorts.
No.
And that sounds way better when it's at trading at 60 grand and 2,500 rather
Yeah.
than when it's at 12 grand and trading back at 500.
Well, the name of
For
the game
Bitcoin and
is,
Ethereum.
the name of the game isn't really trying to get it at the highest point possible. That's just for the people who are trying to sell it off at that high. Really, what everybody wants is stability. Is for that fluctuation to really stop and become a steady line. Like the dollar is a steady line, gold is a steady line, right? Real estate more or less a steady line.
And
Like,
at that point, it'll be a viable currency, like
Exactly.
in a currency that you can actually use. So then, what do you think? Because I have invested in what's it called, XRP,
yeah.
and they're talking about like using that and like I mean cryptocurrencies in general for like international payments.
Yeah.
Like so, with everything like going on right now, and this like shift in different international payment systems, banking, things like that, like how could this play into that?
I feel like it'd be the way to go for the future.
Yeah.
It has to be. I mean, it's instant, and the fees are minuscule compared to what we have right now. I had to send money recently. I had to use Western Union. I know some
Mm.
people use this app. I forgot what it was called. It's a Pakistan. In Pakistan, it's used a
Western
lot.
Union, MoneyGram,
But all these,
Zoom.
that might be it. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But all these services, it's not. There's no. I mean, there are instant things for Western Union. There is an instant version, but the fee's like $10.
Really, I didn't know that they did instant transfers to countries like Pakistan. Let's say, I always thought it was next day at the very best.
I remember sending once where it was like I told the person to go right then and there, and it was there. It would maybe take him an hour
That's
to get to the
crazy.
store.
Wow.
Well, I used to work at a PLS, like a check cashing place, like 10 years ago, and I used to work the night shift,
Mm.
and that's how I kind of know, like okay, some countries they do the next day, some days are instantaneous.
Mhm.
At nighttime, I'm like fighting with my girl on the phone. At that time, 10 years ago, I was whatever, right?
Hmm.
Like I'm fighting with my girl on the phone about some stupid bullshit, and I cashed out like $4 grand in fake checks.
Nice.
Damn.
And then next week
What
they're
happened?
like, they fired
Yeah, I
me.
mean, you got fired,
But
did
it
you get in
turns
trouble?
out,
Like, as in, like,
they were. I mean, so they found out like the same night those same guys went to like 10 other locations,
Hmm.
Oh, okay.
and they cashed out like 20 grand total.
Damn.
So yeah, they were like, "Hey, are all these people involved?" And then when they called me, I guess they must have noticed. Like, I was.
This guy doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
What he was,
Yeah, I mean, there's no way. Like, I mean, they knew I haven't seen $4 grand in my life at that
Well,
time.
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, people will do so much for $4 grand, especially nowadays.
That's a lot of money.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's crazy. Cause I mean, if $4 grand is like so much money, and $50 is not that much money now. It's kind of a
Well,
weird
now it's
thing.
starting to change.
As in, like before when you used to leave the house and you have like $20, $30 in your wallet,
You're like,
You-
okay, cool.
you can get a couple of things done. You can get a car wash, you can get some groceries, maybe whatever, right?
Yeah.
And now when you leave the house with a $20 bill,
It's like, damn.
yeah, you can stop at a fast food place, man. You can stop at Whataburger and get a meal and maybe a soda or whatever, and like add in some of the jazz for like $12. But
Mhm.
that's about it, man. Like $20 doesn't get you that far anymore.
Yeah.
Even like it did maybe 10 years ago.
I don't know, man. Fiat currency, maybe that's the issue.
But then you have all the stories about the people who bought a pizza with Bitcoin and now they're crying about it. Then what you gonna do?
The most expensive pizza.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's what you want to be like.
Yeah,
That's what you want to be like.
That's why you need it stabilized.
Yeah.
That's if you have a stabilized currency. It doesn't have to be Bitcoin. That's why a lot of people want Ethereum, because it's a more stable version. That's what a lot of altcoins are based off Ethereum
Stable
and not Bitcoin.
So
coins.
what was
What
this?
is a
exactly?
Are you
stablecoin?
familiar with this Ethereum merge that was going on recently? Something about like, hey, there's Ethereum merge day like a couple weeks ago.
I know Ethereum is going to 2.0.
Yeah,
Like they're upgrading their architecture, but I don't know much about a merger.
Well, I mean, I think the Ethereum merge was them, I guess, going into like.
It might be. I think it might be like absorbing other infrastructures into its. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but do you think this thing is gonna end the world? Realistically speaking,
it's
like,
gonna change the world.
I'm talking about the climate change stuff, right? I always thought like as technology grows, like and that goes back. We were having a conversation, we were about what maybe a week ago,
Mhm.
right? And it was about Cleopatra. Am I saying her name right?
Cleopatra, yeah.
Cleopatra.
Yeah,
Patra.
you're saying it right.
How she was closer to. What did you say? She was.
It's rather quite interesting. You wasn't there, right?
No.
So I'm going to pose it in the same way.
Yeah.
So Cleopatra, which everybody knows is a significant figure. You think about the Egyptians. You think about the pyramids. Standing above them all. She is closer. Her time frame is closer to Bitcoin than it is to the actual building of the pyramids.
Which shows how ancient.
Which shows how
pyramids
ancient the pyramids actually
Cleopatra
are.
was a long time ago.
Exactly.
Cleopatra.
Intuitively, you would think that Cleopatra would be closer to the building of the pyramids.
Yeah.
Because it would just make sense. If you take Cleopatra back in time as the pyramids are being built, she would understand that. She'd be like, yeah, it's a bunch of rocks. They're going to this formation. However they're doing it, we don't really know. But she would understand that this is what's happening, right? Bring her into our time. How would you explain Bitcoin, let alone electricity, to Cleopatra? Let alone anything, like anything in our modern world. Yet she's closer to our time. She's closer to Bitcoin.
That is insane. Both. I mean,
It's
it
very
just shows you like how fast we've developed. Like he is like she would be able to understand like hey, maybe there's some logs that they rolled these
Sure.
stones. She might understand that. It'd be less baffling to her how they made that than like how, man. Just think, man, we've been like allegedly been to the moon. Like depending on how you ask.
Allegedly.
Well, I think
Are you-
industrialization.
You don't believe we went to the moon?
Oh.
Well, I think we're going back. I mean, look, man, I've
The
been on
first
both
time
sides
around.
of this.
You
I've
don't
been on
think
both
so?
sides of this
Okay.
because I've been on both sides of this. Right
Sure,
now,
sure.
I do
I have
feel
to.
like-
now.
I have to.
Yeah, and I mean, like it sounds cool, like to think,
Sounds
maybe they
cool.
faked it all, but
Okay.
I don't think. I mean.
but I mean, in reality, I'm like, yeah, they probably did it. Who cares? Like, I'm
I
like,
care. That's really cool.
yeah, I'm like, they probably did it, right? If they faked it,
Well, I mean,
they faked it.
Do you think
oh,
the
well.
Soviet? Do you think the Soviet Union faked going into space?
I think they faked going to the moon primarily because.
The Soviet Union didn't fake going into. Because they actually went into.
Well,
space.
yeah, if there's a space
Yeah,
race,
yeah,
and like,
yeah.
hey, the Soviet Union is the first people in
Yeah.
space.
They did
and
a
the
But
lot
first-
first.
I'm saying, like, if it's possible to go to space,
Yeah.
how implausible is it to go to the moon for the U.S. to be able to go to the moon?
Well, I mean, again, I don't think it's
Extremely.
impossible.
Extremely implausible.
Why?
Because they won every stage of the race, right? The first object into space, they got it there first.
Yeah.
The first thing to circumvent the Earth, to actually orbit the Earth at least once, they won that. The first thing to
USSR,
actually
yeah.
just keep going, become a satellite, Sputnik, first satellite in space, they won it. The first actual rocket ship to go, the first organic, they put a dog, I forgot the dog's name, they put a dog into a rocket ship. Like they had the first humans in space then. They were winning everything. And we had the computing power of nothing. Less than a calculator.
But then,
IBM had just rolled out their very first computer, the size of this room.
but they invested. I mean, like they invested a lot in like military technology around that time, and like.
Oh,
other
yeah,
things. I mean,
yeah.
'cause when they saw that, they were
That
like,
was
"Oh,
the military
shit."
technology. It was
Yeah.
the IBM computer. It wasn't It
Yeah.
wasn't allowed to use by NASA. They had to get, they had to contact IBM and be like,
Right.
"This is what we're
right.
doing. Can we use it?" And
Yeah. Yeah.
and it was used by cards. You had the cards with holes, and you had to put different cards in the machine to program it. It was pretty cool.
That's crazy.
No,
Yeah.
but to do that, I mean, you don't really need much though to go to the moon if you can already get into space, which United States did know how to do. We did have rockets. You just if you have enough thrust, you will get into space. And after that, it's rather simple. I mean, you don't even need to get into Einstein stuff. It's just Newton mechanics. It's simple Newton mechanics will get you to the moon and back.
So that's why I'm saying I don't think it's implausible for the U.S. to have been able to do that.
No,
To
that's
be
why
like,
I'm
"Oh,
saying they
damn."
did. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it was
I mean-
crazy, very implausible. Like, if I was a betting man back then, I'd be like, no, there's no way you can do it. But then when they did, I would have totally been like, oh, dang, you guys did it.
Oh,
Well,
that's what you're
after
saying. Yeah,
the-
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you.
So after the first man in orbit in like what 1960 or 1960 or
Something like
1950
that.
something like that.
Yeah, 61 or some shit.
Yeah. After the first man orbited the Earth, would you still bet against it that heavily that we can make it to the moon?
Moon's really far. It's really far.
compared to orbit,
It looks so small to us,
Yeah.
Like when we see it, it's the third of Earth. It's really massive, It's really big, but it's just really far away.
like between here and orbit versus orbit and the moon, that's like
It's
I
quite
don't
a
know
distance.
I don't know what percent or how many times greater of a distance that is, but it's far, very far. talking about like timelines and relativity.
Yeah,
Cleopatra,
240,000 miles.
240,000 miles.
There's
man.
numbers that we wouldn't even comprehend.
And how
you
much?
know?
Yeah,
how far,
I'm like,
how
is that
far
further
orbit?
than Katie or no?
That's how far you would get to have to get to orbiting the moon.
From orbit to the moon?
From orbiting us, to
Yeah.
orbiting the moon.
So how far is ground to orbit?
Oh, for the moon?
No, like
Of Earth?
Earth to orbit.
Oh,
Earth
I think
ground
it's
to
like
orbit.
11 miles or something.
So yeah, think about the scale there. 11 versus what did you say?
11 miles for what?
To get into orbit.
To get into orbit,
from
to
here,
get into
from-
space. I think it's not that
Ground.
far.
So that's a big leap. One small step. That's the Neil Armstrong quote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like
That was,
I
I
mean,
was a big
in
space nerd
terms
when I
of
was like growing up.
in terms of like the sky, it's pretty far out. You know, you're talking like the 11 miles was just getting into like space. You know, that's when you can get into space. You could technically, if you're going fast enough, you could orbit because that's all you're doing is going fast horizontally.
Yeah.
You know, the higher you go, the slower speeds you would have to go to do that orbit thing. So our satellites are up at like 23,000. It's pretty far up. 23,000 miles.
And you said the moon is how much further than that?
That's 240,000.
Oh, that's quite.
Yeah.
That's quite.
It takes
Yeah.
months. It takes like 3 or 4 months to finally get there.
Yeah, that's why. See, I don't know enough about it. That's why I was like, you know what? Screw it. Everyone's saying it happened. It happened.
I mean,
Whatever.
here's my thing about it. Like how I come to terms with like why I think that it probably did happen, right? I think it would be even more difficult to stage the thing than to actually go do it.
How
you
so?
know,
That's interesting.
That's what I've used as like Occam's razor is because so the amount of people that worked on the actual mission for was it Apollo 13 that actually went, right? The amount of people must have been in the hundreds of thousands, right? Because you have, again, there were no computers, actual like computers we think of this day. They had computers, but there were actual people doing math, and they called them computers because they computed, right? So you had all of those people. Then you had all of the people that were working, like engineers that were working on the actual, you know, body, the shield of the spacecraft and all that kind of stuff. You had many, many people working on this thing. All of them would have to be silented. All of them would have to be taught to like, hey, this thing is not actually leading to anything. Even though you're working out the math and you're actually figuring out how to actually do it and everybody's agreeing with each other, all the mathematicians,
What if they duped
all the
them
scientists,
and said that? Yeah. What if they were not in on it?
and none of them on their deathbed were like, hell,
No, what
this
if they
thing-
what if they didn't know? Like they were telling those guys that like, yeah, you're actually like doing all these calculations.
well then why wouldn't they just go do it? If they already have the
Well, maybe
the
it's
thing,
not. Maybe it wasn't accurate. Maybe they're just having them doing calculations.
they
and
would
being like,
know it's accurate though.
They would know.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Well, that's
These
measured.
mathematicians, they're like scrutinous,
At that
you know,
time,
like
yeah.
they'll go into
Yeah,
decimal
that's
places of
true.
like 10s, 15s, you know.
Yeah, I mean that's what I thought. I was like, you know what? Again, they did it. It's fine. Just move on. Like, you know, like why obsess over it or anything of that? Like, I know
mean,
people who are like go
it's
crazy about
It's more
this.
exciting that we're going again. You know, that's way more exciting that we get to see. We weren't alive during the first time. We was 69, and then we kept going until 73. So we weren't born until just now. We never actually seen anyone go into space or to the moon. At least we've seen people go to the space station, but not to the moon. And we're launching people in the Artemis program.
When is
Hopefully-
that launching? Or when is it
Man,
slated to?
It was supposed to launch in 2017, but it's been delayed so many times, and this is the 5th delay now.
Why is it?
I'm not
delayed?
surprised.
It's
Going to
freaking
the moon,
NASA.
man.
Yeah, it's going to the moon. That's a big thing. Well, the first time around, Artemis 1 is just the spacecraft's going to circle the moon, come back. That's it. Artemis 2 is going to have people. They're going to go, circle around, come back. Artemis 3 is going to have people. They're going to land. That's probably, I don't know, 2040.
If we're around by then, because I'm not
Hopefully,
telling.
yeah,
I'm
it's
telling
not
you, because
easy.
you know people
Think
say.
climate change is going to destroy the world or nuclear?
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, bro. It's gonna be
Yeah.
something, some asteroid from out of nowhere
Oh,
comes and hits.
dang.
Yeah, it could be anything, right?
We'll
Or
deal
like
with
some
it.
like crazy volcanic, eruption.
We
And
got
it's
this.
more
But, like-
likely to happen.
I'm saying, we keep on thinking like, oh, there's some linear progression throughout mankind. Well, humans have been here for a while. I'm guessing, right? I don't know the exact date, obviously,
Really long time.
or the exact year, how many years they've been here, but we've been here for I'm guessing like hundreds of thousands of years.
In terms of like the first like man
Human
found,
spe-
like human species, bones and things like that, it's like 2 point
Homo
something million
sapiens
years.
or million. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really,
But modern
Yeah.
man, in terms of civilizations, accounts of like making potteries and things like that is roughly 100,000 years. Yeah.
I always
Okay.
thought the number was around
200,000.
that, like right around. I mean, again, now it's gonna seem like it's way off, but I think these numbers keep on fluctuating as is, right? As in, like, they keep on finding more information,
Exactly.
and they keep on pushing that number, like, oh, how
Further
far,
and further
yeah.
back, yeah.
Because I forgot they had like at one point they had found like some skull and some like remains of
Lucy?
yeah.
Yeah, Lucy.
And I don't even know what the specifics of that are.
Mhm.
But there are even
That
like
was her
pre-Homo sapien humans, right?
Oh, yeah.
So what do you define as humanity? Like, you can go even further back.
There's the Neanderthals. There was definitely a third one that we just discovered.
There's like Homo habilis,
Mhm,
Homo
mhm.
ardipithecus. Like they're different, and these are all humans, like genus Homo.
Yeah. So
And then
I'm
Homo sapiens came that was 2.7 million years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like, if today,
And
like,
we lived we actually lived in parallel with like Neanderthals and
Oh,
whatnot.
Lucy is 3.2 million years old.
and that is
Yeah.
that's pre Homo sapien.
Yeah.
How are we related to her, if at all?
40% of her is Homo
descended
sapien.
from the same. Yeah.
But
So that
she's
was when like there was some convergence.
Australopithecus
Australopithecus, afarensis.
in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which means you are marvelous in Dinkinish. I've never even heard that language. Dinkinish.
Well, I mean,
I like
Uh,
it.
yeah, it sounds nice.
No. Have you ever heard of the what's it called? The Kechnikov scale? I know I'm saying that wrong. It's a Russian word. Kechnikov scale, I believe.
What is it?
close
What is
It's
it?
it's a scale to kind of define how advanced a civilization is. It was a
there's
physicist
like
who came
tier
up with
1,
it.
tier 2, tier 3, tier 4.
It's it starts with tier 0.
Tier 0.
And then 1, 2, 3.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You can theoretically go to 4 if you
Yeah.
could imagine 4, but
What differentiates the tiers?
how much energy you're consuming, the consumption of energy,
Oh, okay.
that determines your advancement as a society.
I mean, so put that into context for me. So the more energy you consume, the more advanced you are. As a
Exactly. So, for example, the differentiating thing between a type 0 and a type 1 is you can harness the entire energy of the planet. Whatever the planet emits, you harness it. Wind power, water, the solar that hits us, like all the energies, the thermal energies that are coming out of the vents in the ocean, whatever the Earth is producing, you know how to harness all of it at 100%. If you're at that level, you're a type 1. And you have enough power to do things like reverse tornadoes,
Dang.
oh yeah, you can reverse any natural
You
phenomenon.
mean reverse the effects, or just reverse?
You're in control. You're in control of the weather at that
Reverse
point.
the weather? Dang.
You have
that's
that much
crazy.
energy. If you have enough energy, 100% of that the Earth emits, then you have enough to control it.
So we're at tier 0.
We, according to the scale, are about at 0.6, 0.7. We're almost at 1.
So what is a tier 2 society? Like, what would that look like?
They're stellars, so they can take all the power from the sun.
Dang.
Okay. Yeah, they usually would put maybe some kind of what do they call it? It's kind of like a geosphere around the sun to harness all of it.
Wow.
But that's a whole nother level, right? Like, the fact is we are getting really close to a type 1, and the fact is that one of our things is already a type 1.
what?
Our communications is already a type 1 network because
How
we
so-
communicate
how so?
globally through the internet and instantly.
Oh, okay.
I can communicate anywhere on Earth instantly through satellites now.
Mm-hmm.
And iPhone 14 actually is coming out with that feature. You can now text and call through satellite if it's an emergency. But the
So
fact that
were
we
we
can do
already
that-
doing that? So who are we? What were? So I want to know now.
Yeah,
Where were the text and calls going before?
it was going through towers,
Uh-huh.
cell towers, and that was sent it to specific satellites, and that was sent
Uh-huh.
to another cell tower, and then
And now it's direct to satellite.
now it's a direct to satellite connection only for emergencies, and I think you have to pay for it.
Oh, it's like a satellite phone.
It's,
back in the
it
day.
turns into a
Yeah.
satellite phone.
Oh,
But we've
so
already had the
GPS
technology.
GPS kind of, there's some connection with satellites there too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
So now tell me this: what would you now in this tier system? Where would we place the Egyptians in 2000 BC?
I mean,
Tier 2?
we really don't know too much about them, If I was to go back to the theories and the stuff that I would read back in the day, back in college days and things, I would probably put them at tier 1. probably closer than we were.
And why? Why do you say that?
Okay.
What
Wow.
energy do you think they harnessed, and how do you think? I mean, honestly, for me,
Hmm.
the most mind-boggling like evidence, evidence of like just how magnificent this
Hmm.
civilization was.
They were magnificent.
Yeah, I mean, building that. Listen, man, you can use any type of labor,
Mhm.
forced labor. You can gather everyone in this neighborhood or in this
Mhm.
town, whatever, and tell them, hey, you got to start picking up these bricks and putting them up there.
Hmm.
And I don't know, what are you gonna do? Hire like a billion like project managers to do it, whatever,
I
right?
mean-
But even then, it would be like
It would take forever, and
They
it would be
had
an
a-
impossible task.
They had a crazy huge. So like, imagine how many slaves, because that was built by slaves, right?
That's
Or,
what
like,
the
indentured-
leading archaeologists would want you, like the leading Egyptologists and all of them would want you to believe. Is that
Okay.
they
the
were slaves.
archaeological
There's no
industrial complex.
There's no
The
evidence that they were
archaeologist
slaves at all.
industrial-
Yeah, it is an industrial
There's no,
complex.
It is 100%, 100%. But there's no evidence that they were slaves. There's more evidence that this was more like a coveted job that a lot
Like a
of people.
communal.
Oh yeah, everybody wanted to be a part of this. This was like a really big deal for them to make these pyramids. And what you were talking about earlier about how the building of it, if we got everybody in the neighborhood together and all that, it's feasible for maybe the pyramids of Giza, because it's a flat ground and it's feasible. You maybe, but the more northern pyramid, what's the name of the more northern pyramid? Abu Gharaib is the most northern one. It's usually no tourists go over there. You can completely go inside of it and everything. It's open to the air, and it's on top of a mountain. So first you would have to get the granite block on all the way up the mountain and then build a pyramid. At that point, no, even people in the neighborhood couldn't do that. How are you gonna? These things were 200 tons.
How would you get
think
it
they
up
were
the
trying
mountain?
200 tons. Like the way I like to think about, because
What elevation are we talking for this mountain? I mean, how far north are we talking?
it's not that far north. I believe it's maybe 8 miles away from Giza.
Okay.
The Gizan pyramids.
Okay, and
North.
you're saying it's on
Northeast.
top of a mountain. We're talking like what kind of mountain?
It's
I mean,
like
a mountain on any scale would be crazy, but
it's a low slope. It's not that sharp, but it's still a slope. You know, it's still classified as a mountain.
yeah, I mean, imagine it's 100 feet. Well, you have to get now 200 tons up 100
200
feet,
tons.
like incline,
You know what our
So-
average car weighs in tons?
How
like
much?
2.
Like 2.
Dang.
Just 2.
Okay, so
This
it
is
was a
200.
tier 1 society.
That's-
Do you think they were
oh,
trying to harness energy through the pyramids?
The reason I was saying that is because
Whoa.
the Gizan pyramids
Yeah.
specifically, the ones that were built in Giza, do you know what they were made out of? Like the actual materials that they were built out of?
What is it?
The inside is a type of limestone. It's a very specific limestone. So is the outside, because the outside was very flat. There's still remnants of the outside, and it's a very white, shiny type of limestone. The white, shiny one on the outside is very low in magnesium, so it doesn't conduct electricity very well. But everything on the inside, all the big blocks, the 200-ton blocks that we were just talking about, all that is made out of a granite that's really high in magnesium, that can conduct electricity pretty well. So what you have is the pyramid in the inside is very conductive. On the outside, it's not conductive at all. And on the very tip is a golden tip. Right now, they have that just this little like thing because they've taken it because so no one steals it. But it used to be a solid golden tip. Gold is the most conductive metal that we know of, and the most naturally occurring conductive metal. That was on the very top of it.
That
On
is
top of
crazy.
that, this whole pyramid's built on top of an aquifer, which is basically pockets of water, just pockets of moving water underneath the pyramid. This water is going on top of limestone, which is kind of ionizing the air. You know, it's creating very, very, very low amounts of electricity. It's like the same electricity when you have a fog outside and you can detect small amounts of electricity in the air. Same thing happens underneath the pyramid. And now it's designed almost like a wire, where you have a conductive material inside, the golden tip on the top. Why? That's the question, right? Why was it built that way, so specifically?
Oh,
And at
they're
the
providing
same-
probably electricity to the whole like area.
Probably, right?
What do you think they were lighting up? Or not I mean,
I
like...
think,
I mean,
I think they
lighting
were
up.
just lighting up the area. I think it might have been a religious thing as well, because it might have been actually glowing at certain times. But it's also rather interesting that pyramids were built all over the world at the
Yeah.
exact same time.
Or
around
the
the exact
timeline's
same time.
parallel.
Exactly.
Like
And-
where else?
In Latin America, there are
there's a
what
ton.
The Olmecs or that
The Mayans,
The
the
Mayans,
Aztecs have
yeah.
pyramids. There's a lot there's a few in China. There's a few in Japan. Have you ever heard of ley lines? Ley
No.
lines.
no.
Ley lines are basically like what you can do is any type of, you can do this in America, London, or I mean England, really any region. You find all the significant areas. So sacrificial sites. You have your shrines, your churches, all those type of places. For some reason, all the ancient places end up on a line.
Wow.
And people track this where they're like, okay, well, there was, a church over here and then a pyramid over here.
Like
and
a
then
latitude?
it's like as if you draw like a line on top of the globe.
Yeah.
They're all on you don't have to bend that line. It's just a straight line that will connect all of
wow.
them.
Okay.
And you could look this up. There's like lines everywhere in every country.
That's crazy.
Castles and...
So do you think they might have been able to communicate with each other somehow?
That's what I'm trying to get. That's my point of the Type 1, is if they probably had a global communication system that was harnessing this electricity from the ground, using this tip of the pyramid where it was the most conductive to send messages to each other. That's why all these other people had pyramids too. They're talking to each other like, yo, what's up?
At the bare minimum, I can understand that being one of the utilities amongst many. Because if you're putting your efforts into building something of that magnitude, I'm sure it has more than just one purpose.
So how and when did that end? Because we don't have that communication network anymore.
Oh no, it probably
we-
ended way before Cleopatra's time.
Okay. Yeah, well, yeah.
Well, I
way
mean,
before.
So how long ago were the pyramids?
If you ask Egyptologists, the most normal answer is about 2500 BCE.
Okay.
So like 4,000 years ago.
4,500,
Yeah,
yeah.
4,500 years ago. But I mean, there's so much evidence to say that it's a lot older.
They're basing a lot of this on like the type of tools they were able to access.
Mhm.
I mean, listen, that thing would be hard with the tools we have right now. Forget I understand that the predecessors, like your ancestors of even those people, could not build it with the tools that they had at their disposal. But like we just talked about, it really seems like they could not have been using primitive tools to build this thing anyways.
I mean, there's so much more than just the pyramids over there. If you
Yeah.
go to these other 6 sites that are along this, what's it called? The Band of Peace is what they call it. It's like this, along the Nile, right? And you have 6 main locations. You can go to the most northern one, and they have this slab, which is a perfectly like laser flat piece of granite. And there's beside there, you'll see like bowls. They're like perfectly, smoothed out from the inside, and there's a hole from the inside of that bowl to the outside of the piece of granite, perfectly burrowed through.
And where's the granite?
It's just sitting there in the northern part in this area called Abu Gharaib.
No, I mean like relative to the bowl. Is like in the bowl?
It's in the bowl.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And
Wow.
Egyptologists will be like, this was a sacrificial bowl. They would sacrifice animals in the bowl, and that hollowed out tube going downwards from the inside to the outside would drain the blood out.
Drain the blood. Yeah.
Really?
Why?
Why? Why would they go to such efforts? First of all, and these things are quartz too. A lot of them are crystal quartz.
So that's hard to drill.
You have to go to like oceans
Yeah.
and stuff. You have to go near the shorelines to find quartz and those type of minerals.
Yeah.
You have to find something big enough first,
Yeah.
and then like why would you do all that?
It's almost like you're working with a presumption these people are cavemen.
Idiots. Yeah.
Yeah, and then how? They
Oh, they did a whole life and all the slave labor they had, if that's what they used or whatever. They all used to build this one thing, so it was a religious custom. And it's like,
I think they were much more in tune with nature. I think they had thousands of years of harmony. We have records, right, of like hieroglyphs and things like that. There were long stretches of time with no warfare, no major conflicts, no like majoring things that caused a lot of bloodshed or anything like that. That really came much, much later. During the dynastic period is what they call it, when dynasty started. But before that, everyone kind of just worshipped cows. It was
well,
like
I
a
mean,
cattle
the
region.
Nile was very much conducive to huge amounts of people living along it, right?
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And like when city states form, and you see this form along these big river deltas, right? In China, it's the Yangtze, I think.
Yeah,
I'm not
the
sure how to
Yellow
pronounce
River.
it. Yeah, and I think both of those became like, specifically, even amongst the different civilizations that sprout up, those two remain the most like stable and consistent, relatively, right? Because I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. It's the abundance of the rivers itself. They're so
Mm.
like. I mean, I think Nile is the longest, and Yellow River is second longest,
I believe so.
right?
I
And
don't
then
know.
it's the Mississippi. I mean, I might be mistaken. But
I know
Yeah.
they're both massive,
Yeah.
and they're both like have had civilizations pop up right beside it because that's
Yeah.
what happens. You have a river, you have deltas, anywhere where there's water. That's
So
where, you know.
they're estimating 2500 BC, right?
Mhm.
That they built these, and they were talking about a worldwide. We have a picture already of how the world was around the 1200 BC, like because of the Bronze Age and
Mhm.
you know like the migration of all the people worldwide, right? Again, it doesn't add up where we have that strong picture in 1200 BC of hey, the Bronze Age is going. Like these civilizations at that time, the Hittites and all that, they're able to trade amongst each other in
Mhm.
this like rather. Again, I'm talking relatively in these primitive ways,
Mhm.
and they're so dependent on this like bronze currency and just like
How did they get from tier 1
Yeah.
to tier 0?
Yeah.
Like
In-
that? Like,
in
was there some
1300 years.
civilizational extinction event
You
or
want to know
something?
my theory?
in 1300 years, and I mean just to put it into context
Mhm.
before we get in, 1300 years. Let's go back 1300 years from now. That would be the 8th century,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and it's like imagine like from the 8th century to now we talk about like the level of development, and I know it's been
Going
exponential in
the
the past
opposite-
century.
So
Yeah.
going the opposite way.
Mm.
Going
Is
the
basically
opposite
what
way.
happened.
Yeah.
See, was there some? Do you think there was some kind of civilizational extinction event, some kind of big war, some kind of?
So
Or
I-
the timeline is off, like you said.
So
Or-
the Egyptians themselves, right? They have two big finds. They have a piece of papyrus and a piece of pottery that they've been keeping, like for generations and generations. That they themselves say that there used to be a civilization before them that dates back 36 to 26,000 years ago, and it's the same thing that
How many years?
26,000.
1,000.
Oh my goodness.
That's what they themselves say. That they have records of at least 26,000 years ago. And they're not the only ones who have records dating back to exactly 26,000 years. It's also area in like Hindustan. That whole Hindustanic
Mhm.
area. There was a civilization over there dating way back, where they, in their text, we started 26,000 years ago. So that's what they're saying, right? So that civilization ended. Obviously, the 26,000 years ago ones that they're talking about, they ended. We know that this one that came about, that started writing about the older one, they ended too. And now we've come about, right? So the question is, what's causing that, right? What's causing that? I really do think it's some kind of global catastrophe. I think people get really advanced. They hover into this type 1 territory where they start to get this global power, and they fuck it up.
exactly.
So it's
They-
interesting.
we're doing it right-
Bitcoin.
We're doing it right now with Bitcoin. The biggest thing with Bitcoin is it's causing super climate change.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, mining
Mining
those
is called-
cryptocurrencies
exactly.
takes a lot of energy. But it's interesting that Halo, the game, right? They have the Covenant, the Forerunners, the Precursors, and each of these civilizations wrote about there being an ancient civilization. They had a mythology regarding that civilization,
Yeah.
and there was some destructive event. It was a war, or they created AI, and like the AI took over, and like that became a war, or whatever the case is, right? Without like spoiling the whole timeline, because it's a fascinating sci-fi story.
Oh yeah.
Game aside, right? Like the whole backstory and everything. So it's interesting that like it just reminded me of that.
Yeah.
There's all these like
You know,
artifacts, and they've tried
completely
to
re-
reconstruct them.
completely sold on that. Actually,
Yeah.
that theory where like you said, like it's cyclical, and we reach a point where we have access to technology and we don't understand how to use it. Well, you see it on the micro level already, where
Mhm.
we have the internet, we filled it with porn, we have social media, we
Yeah.
have we gave it a bunch of kids, and now they can't do anything except
Yeah,
for be on it,
stupid.
Yeah.
except for like, and the
Stupid
only other people
memes.
except for kids are like predators. So, like,
It's true.
yeah. So you see on the micro level, on the macro level, what is driving technological development over the past century? The military, right? In this country, we've been producing so much good technology, but it's through the medium of what? The military-industrial
For
complex.
expansionism and
Yeah, you saw with Tesla, right? It was like, the whole thing with Tesla when like the past 10 years on the onset is revolutionary technology. It will drive out cars, and at this point, right, like like the whole conglomerate. Because I'm adding SpaceX and all these like different projects that Elon Musk has going on.
Elon Musk talking about cooing Bolivia.
Cool in Bolivia,
Yeah.
he's at
For
the end.
lithium.
Oh my
Yeah, the
God.
biggest, most technologically advanced thing that they're doing right now, apart from the car, which a bunch of other people are doing now, is hey, we can deploy weapons to anywhere on Earth within an hour about like this many like like kilograms of
Yeah.
like warheads or whatnot.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, look at the technology. And from here, maybe you can start deploying people or something. Well, yeah, I mean, I understand the development and it's great. We have access to technology, but you can already see how this is going to lead to like, if this is the mode of like development, then we are going to, quickly see like a demise.
We're gonna
Like,
implode.
Yeah,
Yeah.
an implosion. But I feel like when that happens, like all the folklore that we have access to right now, and we talked about it, and I think and we had a good conversation on it. There's so much, like you said, there's mythologies, about ancient civilizations that were like way advanced, right?
Based
And-
on like these artifacts that they have of them.
Oh yeah.
Of
Yeah.
course. I mean, there's like this structure in like Turkey that everyone's been talking about recently. And they showed me a picture of it. It's like huge. It's from like 12,000 BC. It's I can't pronounce the name, but it's
It's just one structure.
it's a huge underground structure,
But
right?
it's one
it's like-
piece, it's
yeah,
not
it's like
like
a
many
it's like a
pieces.
city almost. It's like but it predates agrarian society. Think about that.
That's the thing about.
It predates settled society, so these are Voyagers. Now to think, hey, Voyager society built this. At its apex, Voyager society had like 7 million people, 8 million people worldwide.
Yeah.
Think about the tools they had that we're told that they had, right, to forage and.
Yeah, like something's not adding up where they're able to build this stuff, but in everyday life they have access to nothing. Because even right now, like I mean, relatively, like even. Like, think of the upper rungs of societies right now and the access to technology that they have. Hey, well, they're going to the moon.
Yeah, they're going to space for fun.
So now we can see it on our phone.
Yeah.
Like we have an app for that maybe,
Yeah.
and I'm sure like some of the more like poorer areas in the world, even they have found access to the technology to at least be able to like visually see something
yeah.
like that, right? So the disparity, you get the scale of it, and the scale does not add up where like civilizations are able to build up these huge pyramids in the mountains at times. You go to like South America, they have civilizations in the mountains, but apparently like the average person just like who was involved in the building process, obviously because the world population is so like
I mean, we're just
small.
not on the same page anymore. That's why I don't think they were slaves. I think that everybody was together on just building this one structure, and then they built the one structure. I think if you have enough people doing one thing, anything is possible.
Because they recognize the importance of the collective benefit.
Exactly. Whatever that benefit was.
So that's a very
we need to understand
advanced.
the benefit.
I mean, there's a
yeah.
whole we can go into pyramids like crazy because I didn't even mention the inside of the pyramids. What's actually inside of it? Because it's not a tomb. There was never any mummies found in any of the
Yeah.
Gizan pyramids at all. There's no hieroglyphs inside there. There's no like gold. There's no nothing. So what was it actually used for?
There's no real information that we have
Not
on
really.
there.
No. But we can like
So the claims that they
infer-
are like tombs and they found this like
In other
sarcophagus in there. Oh, in other pyramids.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
There's another pyramid south from Giza called the Saqqara. It's a step pyramid. It has like big giant steps. There were mummies found in there, like pharaohs and things. So there
Okay,
were some
yeah.
pyramids but these big giant ones that one was white, one was red, and one was black. What were they actually used for? I mean, it could have been for so many things. It could have been a healing thing. It could have been a giant machine that produced some kind of energy, some kind of energy plant.
Could have been a town hall.
It could have been a town hall where like whatever it was a collective, maybe 200,000 300,000 people were like, hey, let's do this, and everybody's on board. Everybody's doing night shifts, day shifts. They're working at it. Give it 10 years, 15 years, in one person's lifetime. I think it's possible.
In one person's lifetime is possible. Yeah,
if
you
they're
have,
all like that, just that type of mentality and like 24/7,
Also
365
depends on
days
the
a
level
year.
of technology.
It does.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're assuming that their technology was capable of doing things that it was significantly much more capable of doing things that our technology is
Because
would have a hard time
yeah.
doing.
I
At
mean,
least until any time recently.
right now, 200,000 people. Again, that would be twice the size of this, this city right here, the Sugarland.
Yeah.
Man, I don't see how in one person's lifetime they can build something of that structure, of that magnitude today.
Imagine if it was that many people, but they were taking shifts, right? So you have the day shift, you have the night shift, and it was 365 days a year because everyone's so invested. It's like their religion. This is like they know they're gonna go somewhere nice in the afterlife if they do this thing for the rest of their life. So they're every waking moment they're trying to build this structure. I mean, let's say it takes 30 years, right? Let's say it takes one person's whole lifetime. I think 30 years was the average lifespan of a person. Maybe it took 2 generations, right? 60 years. That's still one lifetime for us.
That's a hell of a lot of dedication to that belief.
Super dedication.
I mean, going back to what you were saying, though.
We don't have that anymore. That's why we can't build anything close to that.
What do you think the people who are instructing these people to build this on their behalf, like the pharaohs, if they're like, hey, you need, or the aliens, let's say the aliens built it.
The aliens.
They were like, hey, build these. What would their motive be apart from just like busy work? Here, man, I have nothing to do. Here's my lemonade. I'm gonna watch you build this today.
They could totally be like, we're building a hospital and this is gonna cure your kids.
And is it though? Is that what the pharaoh wants, or what do you think that the elite who are building the structure want out of the structure?
I think initially it was good stuff like that. Initially,
power, society,
it was a society. Yeah. Because
generators.
There was a lot of pharaohs that were lost to history. A lot of pharaohs, a lot of women that were lost to history. It used to be matriarchal back in the day, and then it turned to a patriarchy. When it became a dynasty, when it started ruling, men started ruling over there. They broke down all the statues of these old people, who actually, were the ones that wanted to build all these things and wanted to get more in tune with nature.
Around when was that? I'm gonna look it up. Around when they did this, when because
that is recorded for sure. Like the dynastic era of Egypt, like that's recorded.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that's still probably predates. Let's say Cleopatra,
Cleopatra was only like 50 BC.
Yeah,
it's like 50 years before the birth of Christ.
She was concurrent with Caesar,
right there. You know what I'm saying? That's the backyard compared to what we're talking about. But
it always baffled me. Like you brought up the Bitcoin example, and I think when we talked about it just made no sense sometimes. Like when I first heard it. She had archaeologists of her own.
She did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just like mind-boggling when you think about it. But definitely, I'm gonna look it up real quick. When did the dynasties become patriarchal? Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's like a very
I mean, the thing what we know for sure is that we didn't know that there was anything before them until we started digging stuff up, and it was really an accident that some stuff started falling apart, and we're like, oh. There's pieces of another statue here. We put it all together, and there was a woman. And we're like, oh, there's used to be women leaders, and it was like a whole thing about sacred feminism, and along with sacred masculinism, that you have to put them together. And they were all about spiritualism. That was their whole thing. Was that we're all one people, we're all tuned with the earth. I think they're the ones that really discovered these energies and all these kind of things. Then the men came. Tried to take it over, destroyed all these statues, destroyed all the don't worry about that. I think they started trying to profit from it, and we know there's evidence of Egyptians doing basically what the Catholic Church did with what are they called, reparations, where you pay to get sins removed.
Yeah, there's a term for that.
There's a term for it. They had the same thing. Egyptian priests would give you a little wooden statue, and you have to pay for that, and that would alleviate your sins. So that when the god of death came and weighed your heart with the feather of truth or whatever, that you could pay for your heart to get lighter. And that was the men that did that. So that's what destroyed it. I think that's this whole is the currency thing that started to happen. It was leaders started to want money, and you started to get this elitist group that started to get way more money than the population. Boom, society collapsed. They all disappeared, and that they were all under sand until 1940 or something.
Well, and when did they go not underwater? When did they go underground, so to speak?
I mean, there's society. Yeah. We don't know how they really collapsed, but they definitely collapsed away.
Is there any indication of a war?
There were definitely wars, because
a major.
I'm sure there were major events that led to it. Yeah. I don't know about any of the recorded histories of that.
Okay.
Well, again, like so much of this stuff is just like so like
But I
it's a
feel like-
rabbit hole. You really just gotta
It
like
is.
you know.
I
It
feel
is,
like it's
yeah.
cyclical though. I feel like it's happening right now. Like we're going through that societal collapse that they went through. We're getting to that point where we're getting super advanced, but we're not wise. We don't know what to do with it.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think it'll take. I mean, like, barring like some kind of like catastrophe of like like just world like ending proportions, right? If it keeps on going this way, the way it is, we can see like the power, like a general shift in like where the balance of power has laid in the past like 500 years. It's always been like in Europe, in the U.S., and now you're gonna see it going towards the Far East, and that is like in itself such a monumental shift without any like dramatic event, and that itself kind of shows you like we have our mode of production while it's leading us to like these great technological like developments, going back to that, but it's also the cause of the demise if you don't use it.
Too focused on technology, we're losing touch for so many other things. Our spiritualism is going away. Honestly, our morals
Connection
and our
with
ethics,
reality, our ethics, our morals.
they're
are,
getting very shaken
Yeah.
nowadays. It's so shaky on what like you can actually say and believe. It used to be pretty clear cut. Now it's all over the place. Now there's spectrums everywhere. Everything's on the fucking spectrum. Like
Yeah.
it's never
Yeah.
like this is right, this is wrong. It's just
moral
like,
relativism coming with
yeah,
that.
it's
the
a whole
postmodern,
different thing
like-
that's happening. It's like when we talk about golden eras of society, there's so much more that we mention, right? We talk about the art that they produce as well. We talk about the paintings that produce, like the last golden era that we had with the in Florence, right? The big boom of science and art and everything like that started happening with Leonardo da Vinci. Like that is what a golden era looks like.
We talked about how art is like degenerate nowadays, and it's just
Oh yeah,
like,
because it started to crash, right? Like a golden era goes into silver when it's starting to crash, then it goes into bronze, right? Bronze is like really bad, but the last layer is iron, and that's basically black, right? That's the black. We've had that. It was during the Christian time where it really messed everything up. Illiteracy was rampant because they didn't allow people to read. Science, math, literature, art, spiritualism, all that disappeared.
and they had to do that to entrench the feudal system.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it came back because it's cyclical, right?
So
I think
how
it
do you
bounces
think?
back.
How do you think like a historical analysis from like a historical materialist point of view could apply to like that previous? Do you think there was like that? There's definitely that same kind of progression from like one form of social organization to another, based around like how stuff was produced.
Yeah.
And then that crashes. So
And
do
then it
you
comes
think
back.
this time we will finally? I mean, so at that point, like I don't know where. I'm just
Very
thinking.
no-
I'm
very
just thinking of that
interesting, yeah,
trajectory.
yeah.
I'm thinking of
I
how
see-
those phases would play out.
I think that might be the only thing that we keep right throughout these like catastrophic events, and I mean the ice ages would be like one of them, right?
Yeah.
Like things like that. Like again, we have a lot of symbolism of the ice ages, and we have like a general like. I mean, even like Noah's Ark. There's like a bunch of geological events in history that point towards like huge like rises in like sea level dramatically
Oh,
over
yeah,
like,
like
a short span of time.
The massive world flood.
and all
Basically,
of
every
these,
civilization talks about it.
they have this in like Hindu texts. they
Every
have this in-
civilization is
yeah.
talks about
Yeah,
it.
but I mean, I think as these events happen, and while like 90% of it is recurring issues and recurring themes, right? Like overall, like our collective issues cause these collective problems, right? But I think as we develop our thought process over time, so like post Socrates, and again, this is assuming like a lot because maybe they had reached a philosophical like
I'm
peak
curious
in
as
that
to
time.
what their moral code and what their
Yeah.
philosophical inclination was.
Well, again, if you listen to the archaeologists, they were all cavemen, and they were
Yeah.
just building
No,
stuff.
no.
They built this whole thing through slave labor, and the slaves
Well,
were
if-
using hammers that they built out of like.
If you look at what
bones.
Plato said, my boy Plato, he had something called his great year. That's what he called. You have your year, which is just and you have your day, which is the sun, going around, whatever, the Earth going around the sun, is the year. he made another time frame called
How
the
long
Great
is-
Year. It's 26,000 years,
Jeez.
which turns out to be the exact same time that Egyptians and the Hindustan area, those people are saying that their civilization, they had civilizations 26,000 years ago that were in this golden peak type. Then it crashed. 26,000 years later, Plato's Great Year, there was another golden. Then it crashed. Like there seems to be this cyclical of this 26,000. And Plato was the guy who was like, yeah, and he calculated it. It's real math.
Really? So what is he using to calculate? I mean, I know I'm not trying to get into specifics because I mean,
It's quite technical,
But-
but it's the tilt of the Earth. The Earth spins, but it also is tilted at 23.5 degrees. That is also turning really slowly.
The actual axis.
The actual axis. So if this is the
Okay.
axis here, it's turning
Yeah.
on its own y-axis. That full one rotation is 26,000 years.
It's like the Earth kind of wobbles around it.
Yeah,
in
yeah,
a
yeah,
way,
yeah.
Just kind of.
Since the Earth is already tilted at 23
Yeah.
degrees, if you had an
Yeah.
X going right in the center of Earth, that 23
The axis is
degree
going like this, kind
is
of.
rotating around that middle Y. And that one rotation takes 26,000 years.
That's crazy.
That's what he figured
That's
out by
insane.
Man, these ancient Greeks.
Yeah, that's saying something again. Yes.
He figured it out and he's like, yeah, I call this a great year. It must be significant. It just makes sense. Little did he know that, yeah, there was a golden era society that lived according to Egyptians 26,000 years ago.
And that's one great year, and that
One great
and that was from Plato's time to around what, like basically 200 BC.
Mhm.
No, is that it?
Plato?
How long ago was Plato?
200, 300 BC is my
I think so.
guesstimate.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's 1 year. Now I'm estimating how many years has humanity had then, right?
Wait, how long ago was Moses? Abraham?
400 to 300 BC.
400 to the because I thought
For Plato.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man, that's mind
Wait a minute.
boggling.
300 to 400 BC for Plato. And Cleopatra's 50 BC.
Yeah.
Plato's way older than Cleopatra like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Cleopatra was out here studying Plato.
Probably, yeah.
That
Because there
is
was
blowing
like
my mind.
because
Plato-
Ptolemy
these
was
time
from
frames.
Ptolemy
This
was
guy.
from Egypt, and that was the same like
I know that they definitely
Greco-
talk to each other.
Like they
Yeah.
definitely talk to each other, definitely exchange knowledge and things. She most likely
it's
studied
right across the
Socrates and
Mediterranean.
Plato. Yeah.
It's right across the Mediterranean. It's,
like they because these
That's
guys are
fascinating.
catching, like, so basically again, and that I guess makes it like even more like mind-boggling what
Mm.
Alexander was doing. These guys taught Alexander. This dude went all the way to like Sindh, bro.
No, yeah.
So
Yeah,
that
yeah.
is like that is like crazy.
That's insane.
That's crazy. Like 300, 400 BC, or like Cleopatra. She's doing archaeology and all that.
Mhm.
Bro, there's one dude 300 years before that. Like he's like, oh, I'm gonna just go dip to South Asia real quick, bro. Even right now, for me, I'm thinking, man, that's like a 15-hour flight time, man. I'm trying to skip that.
I
Oh,
did
man.
that on horseback.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
People's like sense of time in their life was just different, like scale wise. Like I guess
And it makes so little sense because the average age, literally, for anything over 100 years ago was 30 years old. That was it. It's only modern science and things that have gotten us to this level. Before that, average person always roughly about 30 years old, as far back as you want to go. It's roughly about 30.
Really, 30.
And they
years.
always accomplish so much in such little time.
yeah,
As in, like, how,
people
how-
matured way
faster.
quicker,
And
way
they
faster.
were way more thirsty for things, for knowledge, for adventure, for like seeing the sights. Like get on horseback. Yeah, it's gonna hurt my ass, but I'm gonna go do it because I want to go see what's beyond my horizon. The sun goes somewhere. I can see it setting. Oh, what the hell's back there? I want to go check it out.
Right.
This is a natural barrier
you
here.
don't do that
right?
anymore.
No, bro.
Now you
because,
get on
like,
TikTok.
Because now
Nah,
it's day
bro,
to
I
day,
feel
it's
like,
hour to hour.
The onus, man, is really like like when you say things like TikTok, it puts the onus. And we just talked about it.
Mhm.
We do it all the time. It's like, hey, the consumer is stupid. Yeah, he is maybe, but I
no,
don't
it's
know.
social control.
I'm
a
it's
consumer.
concerted.
It's like, why do I need to like go through like liberal arts classes, 4 years of college to start something? Like start my life. I have to get a degree now. And it's like, well, 4 years.
Mhm.
You can't make that shorter somehow, because like you said, people are like, you should live till 30 and live full lives.
Full lives.
You're saying I need to dedicate 4 years to just like
Bro, you
study,
need to go
getting
K
trained.
through 12
They would laugh at you in the
to
ancient
be
times.
an adult.
They'd be like,
through
13
12.
years.
Bro, 4 years of knowledge training for them, they'd be like proper
You think about
chiefs
it,
of the
yeah.
tribe and stuff, you know, like
Childhood is legally 18 years. And you look at
For
other
us.
non-human species, like,
it's like right away.
bro, it's a few years.
Yeah.
Top, like, I don't know, like apes, gorillas, whatever, like, their kids aren't babies for 18 years. Like, they're not, you know?
Well, they got these pictures of statues of like Socrates, like of his, like, and he's like this bearded man, and you're like, do you realize he's probably guy was
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
like 32 when he died?
Yeah.
34.
Well, I mean, he's
They-
bearded, but they make it look like he's like this
Yeah.
old, wise, wrinkly, like,
yeah,
you know.
he's like some
I
old,
mean,
like, you know.
there is a thing of like,
He's probably younger than. I mean, give it 4 or 5 years, we have outlived Socrates.
Yeah.
oh yeah,
I read like maybe a while back, maybe like a decade ago, that the average person, when they got access to like all these smartphones, you're consuming as much information as Socrates did in his lifetime in 2 days.
Yeah, just
can
imagine
imagine
how
that.
much garbage you're consuming out of that.
Oh,
It's just all garbage.
It's all garbage. Bro. Yeah,
it's
all-
entertaining, but I feel like it's gonna lead to. You ever seen WALL-E, the Pixar movie WALL-E?
Ooh, that
No, I have not.
dystopian.
That's it.
Yeah,
Dystopian
You know
Pixar
why?
movie, Wall-E.
Have you ever seen it?
fantastic.
It's
phenomenal
fantastically
movie.
portrayed. Like when the humans come into scene, you're like, "Geez, Louise, that is gonna be humanity if we're on our trajectory." Everyone's fat, everyone's lazy, everyone gets like their food delivered to them, like everything's automatic. They're on site like these floating machines that take them to wherever they need to go on time. Like they're watching TV the whole time, and robots do everything.
What
And
the
we
heck?
focus on the robots in the movie, which is beautiful. That's why I love the movie. But the dystopian future that they put around it, if you watch it, you're like, you know what? That's very realistic.
Really crazy movie. You gotta watch it.
And they left Earth because they freaking trashed it, which is exactly what we're doing.
Oh yeah, I mean, I never got that. Like we're gonna leave this planet and go and live somewhere else, and people are like, "Yeah, we're gonna do that."
Hell
Listen,
yeah,
bro,
I'm
there's
down.
no we involved in this, buddy. You, me, anyone we know or will ever
I'll
know.
take you guys. I'm down. Let's go.
How are you gonna get there,
What
buddy?
you mean? My major goal in life is to start an aerospace company. I'm gonna beat the rich people there.
Beat the rich people. Well, that's our
They don't
only
even
way.
know what to do in space. They're rich people. They don't know. They're not smart. They're just
Yeah.
gonna go over there and be
No,
in
I mean,
awe.
it's
They're
but-
gonna go into space and be like, "Wow, it's so." I'm gonna go into space and mine
Uh,
asteroids.
Ooh.
They don't know
wait,
nothing
would you
about
do that
that.
on the moon?
Crazy.
They don't know nothing
Would you
about
do that on the
Would you
moon?
mind the moon though?
What does the moon have? The moon has got nothing on it. There's like a little
So-
bit of Bonnie, water.
You got moon
you know,
rocks,
like-
bro. What you mean?
I mean,
Nah.
at a
Start
certain,
out international drug cartel.
at a certain point, if you bring enough, then people are gonna be like, it's not worth anything. We have a bunch of moon rocks everywhere, but gold is worth
So you're gonna have
a
to
lot.
manipulate the scarcity of it, and there we go.
Probably.
Civilization.
There you go, civilization, man.
You know, that's what the theory is for the first trillionaire, right? The richest person on Earth right now is about roughly $200 billion. That's like the limit of what we can, as what we know.
Who's the richest
right?
person right now?
It's Elon Musk.
Elon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He keeps it fluctuates between him, Jeff Bezos, and the guy who owns Tata, the Indian dude.
Yeah, the Indian dude.
They,
always-
they got a new Indian guy who's third now. His name is like Adani or something.
oh yeah, he keeps
Okay.
fluctuating here.
Yeah.
Some
They're-
telecom guy. Probably.
They're all roughly around
Maybe.
200 billion.
They have their money tied into stock a lot.
Mhm.
So when these stock market plunges are happening, right, their net worth is fluctuating considerably in that
Yeah.
time period. Now I
Yeah.
don't know how much what impact that has on, like, how
I mean,
much
that's
cash they have.
That's the people that we
Is
know
that the
about.
metric they're using? I don't know, but I doubt they have like 200 million sitting in cash. That'd be kind of
They probably
stupid.
200 million is nothing compared to a billion.
in cash, but that'd be irresponsible.
You have 200 billion. You have that's a big difference between a million and a billion. It's huge.
I mean,
Massive.
I'm thinking about it. No, you're right. I mean,
They probably do have like millions laying around in cash and like Geneva banks in Switzerland and stuff. Like
Yeah.
yeah. I'm talking about just like straight, like just like in a
And that's
checking
just
account
the business
somewhere,
people.
like Bank of America. But like, yeah,
supposedly, what's his name? The Russian president.
Vladimir Putin.
My boy Vladimir Putin supposedly has like $500 billion, around 500 billion. But why would he go out?
Well,
telling-
Russia has like a crazy amount of gold reserves.
Yeah, and it's
Russia
all
has
his,
an
so-
insane amount of gold.
I mean, bro, honestly, all these numbers are fake, in my opinion, because you look at all them sheikhs that have all the oil, and I mean,
They're probably at
Yeah.
nearly like 600 billion, 700, but no one's at a trillion. No individual person because that's a massive number.
See,
to get
I'm
to.
gonna ask you. Like,
I'm
think
gonna
about
get to
it.
a trillion by mining
Like-
asteroids. That's what I'm telling you.
Bro,
would've
just take me
put
on your
50s.
plane with you. But like, you know,
I
Aramco
got
when they
you
were
that.
IPOing, they were like, this is the first $1 trillion IPO. That was like I forgot.
Mm.
Like, you know, again, like sometime in the past decade. It's
Mm.
been a minute. But if the IPO for Aramco is $1 trillion, imagine like the king there who's like literally hoarding
Mhm.
like a specific number, a specific amount of the profits, a percentage. Forget the amount. A specific percentage of the oil profits
Yeah.
are going to
Yeah.
the king. Bro, the oil profits going to the king. That's
Well, think about how much wealth that clan has, the Saudi clan.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's like
Probably
hundreds
a
of
lot.
people in there. They're definitely in the trillions. The Rothschilds, imagine how much wealth they have.
Oh man, there's so many. There's the names that we even know.
Yeah.
Like,
those
think
people
about
even
families we
real,
don't
bro.
know.
I'm just
No,
gonna-
they're
Yeah,
real.
they're
I don't want to go
That's
too
an
off
actual
topic,
thing.
right? But I'm gonna ask you.
Yeah.
Whenever someone's like, "Hey, man, the Rothschilds," I'm like, "This guy watched Alex Jones."
No, I mean that's an actual banking family.
if
they've crashed the Bank
If
of
they
England
just
before. I
talk
think.
about the
Have they?
Rothschilds, if that's the
done
only
some-
family, then yeah, they're
Yeah,
Alex Jones.
then
If
that's
they
it.
say more names like the Vanderbilts,
The
they say
Vanderbilts,
some more
yeah.
names, some more families, then you'll be like, okay, this guy knows what's
But
up.
Yeah.
what I've heard is like, "Hey, y'all don't know about the Rothschild, but they control the whole earth." And then they're like, "These guys created every
don't
war
control
ever," and it's like, "Oh,
No, it's not at that
It's
level.
them, okay."
No.
Well, I think the banking families like have a lot of
Mhm,
influence, and
for
when it comes to
sure.
like moving money and whatnot, like
Oh,
foreign,
yeah.
Mhm.
foreign policy, like geopolitics are critical
That
in that
kind of
because
stuff,
it's
for sure.
resources at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I mean, there's more than just the Rothschilds in on this, and it's more complicated than that. And they're smart enough
Way
to
more
have their
complicated.
own like systems and things in place that they're not going to allow to be revealed. Like whatever we know is whatever either slipped through the cracks or whatever
Yeah.
they're okay with us knowing.
there are
I'm sure they're like
there are shadow elites that just control very specific things, not the
Yeah.
entire world, but like the banking industry
banking is like
is totally controlled by a shadow elite.
Yeah.
Like the United States Reserve, you guys know, right? The United States Reserve is not
Yeah.
a government entity that is run by a private organization.
Yeah.
You can't find any information on them publicly at
That
all.
shit's a
Who's
small
their
club.
CEO? Who works there? Where's their building located? You will not find any information public. Yet, supposedly they're the United States Treasury. They actually print the freaking money. They're the ones that mint everything, and they're a private organization. Who are you? You're the guys that you have the power to run up inflation. You have the power to do everything by printing the actual money, and you're private. That's a shadow group right there.
that is a shadow group.
Well, going
by
back to the
definition,
stock
yeah.
market thing, he's speaking tomorrow. What's his name? Jerome Powell. He's like the Fed guy.
Yeah.
He's speaking. He's speaking tomorrow, and like the whole market's been waiting because if he raises the rates by like 1%, then everyone's gonna sell their shit, and it's gonna be like chaos tomorrow. But if it's only a 0.75%, then it'll delay the chaos by 2 weeks.
Whatever chaos we're dealing with now on the time scales that we were talking about before is nothing. We have way more larger concerns than economic, to be honest.
For sure. I mean,
Right.
again, like, you know, like we were talking about that day. Again, forget an asteroid, something like the plague comes. We saw what COVID did to the world. Imagine if something like the plague had hit the U.S., the economic and, you know, cultural hegemon of the world, and military, like, you know, every way. If the plague had hit this country in the same way it had hit Europe, you know, over like decades and wiping off
Yeah.
like, you know, a third of the population. I mean, it would just
We'd be done.
Yeah, forget we. I mean, I feel like, you know,
As
so much of like
humanity.
the world would just like, you know.
When I say we, I mean humanity. We as a human race, we would have to reset again. And it's such simple things like plagues, viruses, they're everywhere, right? We have like what, 20 variations of COVID already? Like Omicron and all these things, like they can do
Yeah.
so much worse than it could before. There's so many different types of flu, there's so many different types of like HIV types of viruses, like there's so many. That's just
This
one
monkeypox
level of
is
thing,
like
right?
the-
Then you have like the asteroids you were talking about. It's a whole other. There's so many things that could wipe us out so easily. That's why we really. There's two things. I feel like that could be a solution. One is really focusing on STEM stuff. Right? You have your science, your technology, your engineering, and your mathematics. You really start to focus on that. Start taking that seriously. You know, when these climate scientists were talking about this climate stuff happening many decades ago, no one took them seriously, and now a third of Pakistan is underwater. You know, that's not appropriate.
But who's gonna who are the people that need to take it seriously? As in every single person?
Yeah,
Right?
humanity.
Yeah,
yeah.
humanity.
As a human race, we need to take STEM more seriously, but also on the other side, we need to take nature more seriously. We're losing our connection with nature. Our spirit. No one takes walks anymore and just in nature breathes in fresh air. If you start doing that, you automatically will start getting more in tune with STEM stuff, science and technology and things. It'll
Or at
be
least
automatic.
But then
appreciate
again,
what
you
we're
have-
losing.
you have-
At the very bare minimum, understand, like, you know what, we were growing up, we used to read in textbooks about the Australian coral reef,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and I don't think they teach about that kind of stuff. That not that kind. That's specifically
It's
because
almost
that
dead.
was a world like wonder, right?
It is.
And I think they had to close it off completely
it's almost
because
dead.
it'll
Yeah.
take like 500 years to replenish.
It's fucking gray.
Yeah, and
Not even colorful anymore. There's a very small areas that are colorful, and it's like very limited time you get to swim in there now. But it's not like when we were kids.
yeah, and it's like that's just in the past 20 years that
Yeah.
we've like completely had to stop teaching about a thing that is a world wonder because we've literally just like plastered it with like trash, right?
But again, that's like, you
Freaking
know,
Garbage
the
Island.
the
You heard about it?
barrier to achieving those things is that there is this concerted effort, right? I mean, the things like we talked about, right?
Mhm.
There's that to expand economically and acquire more resources and produce more.
Yeah, I mean,
They have to keep the people on TikTok. They have to keep the people driving cars. They have to,
they
you know,
do.
whatever.
I mean, that's
That's why
because
they're
that's their goal. Is
taking
this
over the
is this
world.
That's why they're
capitalistic?
taking over the world. It's
goal.
this capitalistic thing.
Yeah,
so.
it is. It's an oligarchy, right? You have the rich that are wanting to rule everything, and they truly are. You're right.
Yeah.
Like the difference between the 0.1% and the 1% is massive, and the 1% between everybody else is even worse,
Ooh,
right? Like
yeah.
it's the gap is way too big.
Well, I mean,
you
I'm
know?
going back to the control because you know, like some people can be like, okay, you know what, screw the gap. I'm not even talking about the gap, bro. Again, you're going back just a decade, and a decade changes a lot in your mind, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't. But you can understand, just going 10 years ago, you can professionally not have a beard in a professional setting,
Yeah,
right? As in, like, you have facial hair, they're like, you can't work at a bank.
Yeah, I
you can't go to
I
this
wasn't
high
allowed to.
school.
Yeah.
You can in this high school. You're
Yeah.
going to the principal's
Mhm.
office. Why? You have a beard. You have facial hair.
yeah.
And that was the level of control who had. It was employers, they're like, hey, you can't get a job.
Yeah.
Your employer, the guy sitting in the big office, right? He's like, I don't like people with beards, bro. I just think y'all are all crooks. So
I
guess
mean,
what?
They can still do it. They just can't say it now.
Yeah, now it's but when
They
because
just
it
can't be
became
verbal
like a
about it.
thing, like, you know, like it's like now it's like, you know, a cultural hipster thing, whatnot.
Mhm.
So but it's probably something else that's not in a periphery now, right? That's not affecting me. That is still like there, and that level of control, like you think about it, you're like, if your employer today was like, to put into context, my employer was telling me to come back to the office, and I was like, I'm gonna try to find another job, bro.
Nah.
Right? I'm not trying to. I like remote work. If he told me, you know what, you can work remotely, shave your beard, I'd be like, what the heck?
Yeah, that's
I
wild.
mean, I feel like I'm different in that aspect. I wouldn't shave the beard or do anything that goes against religious values. If it's a religious value thing, like let's say I'm wearing a yarmulke or something, it's like no headwear allowed, then yeah, I'm leaving the position, right? But if let's say I'm working for an employer and he says, come in on Saturday. You have to come in Saturday early morning to the office. I really need you to do some work. Yeah, I'm going to do it. Because that's the guy who's giving me money.
Yeah, I understand
You
working
got it,
an extra
yeah.
shift,
He's
you know,
feeding
or
me.
something along that line.
That kind of stuff, if I'm capable of doing it, it's not going against any of my values or anything like that. It's just annoying. I'll do it.
I'm saying, like, let's say it was not, forget it was not the beard and it's not coming in extra. It's not anything inconvenient for
Yeah.
you. It's just,
'Cause I'll
hey,
shave
I
my
want to
beard.
exert some kind. I want you to know that I have control over your life. So I'm
He
like,
does.
you know, yeah, but I want you to know it, bro.
That's okay.
so you know what I
So
learned.
I'm like, hey, you can't wear when you come to work. You can wear every color shirt except for the one you're wearing right now. And
Nah,
you're like, yeah, okay, cool.
My bad. I won't wear it this
Yeah,
one.
exactly.
That's how I'll
yeah,
be.
yeah.
Because he's the one feeding me.
Yeah,
So what's-
yeah.
When I get to a point
saying
where I'm
you
starting to
can
feed
be-
other people, I'm not going to be like that. Because
Right.
I'm learning from this guy that this is
Yeah.
not the way to do it.
Yeah.
But I know I have to play the game.
Yeah, for
Because
sure.
it is a freaking game.
I'm saying even if you obey, you know, what he's saying, for sure, like, you know, like, go ahead. That should contextualize, even us being like, yeah, we'll go ahead and do it. Contextualize the level of control exerted by
Mhm.
people who are like, you know, these are not some, like, this is not Socrates telling you not to wear the shirt
Yeah,
or
yeah.
shave your beard, right? Like, you know,
No.
hey, this is some, like, way to attune yourself with the planet. It's this random dude who's just, like, sipping on whiskey at
Trying to
11
make money
a.m.
off of you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. and they have the control over you mentioned the word control. That's the most important thing, you know, like that is being like exerted and should piss people off more than like the Gap and
People need to really take that seriously.
I mean, but I feel like the Gap is related to that control. You know, it's
for sure.
It's because of these rich people that we really didn't do anything about the environment. We really didn't do anything about economies in different countries. You know, we let wars happen, things like that could have been avoided, but it was really, really profitable for them.
Yeah, no, I mean, completely.
And we can't do anything. The populace can't do anything about it because the Gap's too big.
There's this thing with pharmacists that I learned from a guy who's a pharmacist today. They don't get lunch breaks. As in, they do, but I'm not talking about all pharmacists, but a lot of these like commercial pharmacies, like Walgreens, whatever. These pharmacists, if they're off, technically, like their employer, right? So they didn't have lunch breaks, and then there was a lawsuit for it, and then they gave them lunch breaks. But the caveat is, when you get back from lunch, all the people who came to get their prescriptions or whatever, you're gonna have a line there.
Of course.
Right? They're not shutting down the actual pharmacy. And so they're gonna be pissed. And so when you get back from your 12 to 1 lunch at 1 o'clock, work's gonna be insane. So like a lot of these pharmacists have to end up eating on the job. They don't get a lunch break.
So many jobs.
And there's there's a thing now where like a lot of people are striking and like pharmacy lines are getting held up and whatnot because pharmacists are like, yo, no way. So like,
well, yeah, but it's like stupid stuff that like encumbers efficiency, as well as like, you know, pisses like off the worker and the customer.
No.
To get an hour of customers extra worth of profit.
Like you're working retail or you're behind a cash register and you can't have a chair, and it's like, why can't you? Why do I need to stand for 8 hours? Why can't I just sit down?
I was a teller for a big bank, and that's what it was. I had to stand
cashier
the whole
at
time.
Target, same. I feel you.
It just doesn't make sense. It's like,
so their reasoning
you got
that
lazy
they
when you
told
sit
us,
down.
Yeah, exactly. Is that we don't want you like slouching and relaxing too much. It's like, bro, come on, like. But again, like.
I mean, that's just. I mean.
As if like, you know, if someone came into the
line.
bank, you'd be like just like, you know, laying back like this. And like, you know, like light of a stove.
Of course not.
Light of a stove with the
You
customer.
know,
Be like,
you
no.
use it appropriately. You would greet them in the exact same way. I mean, it's a level of control. That's what it is.
But I mean, I feel like we're past the point of anything like being fixed in the macro sense. Yeah, you can make small, like, you know.
Climate-wise, I feel like.
I mean, small changes is what affects the macro.
All of this?
Yeah, you can't reverse this, you know, climate stuff unless like you just see the consumption of energy in this country specifically just dropping off the map somehow. Like consumption of energy in this country is disproportionately just like
the
insane.
military consumes so much.
So.
Well, no, sir.
itself.
Now the president has announced only electric vehicles in the military. That problem is solved. So now next.
Well, mining the lithium for those batteries.
So that's
they're gonna be done with EVs now.
That's actually the reason why
EV mining technology.
Electric vehicle F-23s.
That's why I said to focus on the STEM stuff. Is because that kind of stuff gets solved if you focus on, okay, well, what's a battery? It's lithium.
Yeah.
Right? There's chemicals inside of it that is making. We don't need that to be that way. It's a chemical battery. We have a bunch of ways to make batteries. We just don't really know how to produce them yet. Right? There's like physical batteries that use like you know, physical things inside of them, like actual gears and stuff inside of them, rather than chemicals that will hold energy in the same way. You know.
Well, you think China will do it though in the next 5 years? Because anything I think about in the next 5 years, China has done it.
The way we're making batteries, the way we're harnessing energy, all that stuff is pretty trash. You know, it's just, all of it can be improved tenfold. I mean, solar is definitely the way to go first. You know, that's going to improve a bunch. But it's just really renewables as a whole. And then it's also the stuff like lithium-ion batteries and all these kind of stuff, like just the manufacturing process as a whole, which consumes so much and releases so much pollutants in the atmosphere. All that needs to be changed.
What are your thoughts on nuclear energy? Like, I mean, I know, like,
I was gonna ask about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed to be really, really good.
But
clean,
I mean,
super
efficient.
Clean. Yeah.
I always wondered if there's a natural disaster in that area where we have it, like, you know, like Fukushima type stuff.
Well, Fukushima, I mean, the regulations on that were terrible, atrocious.
You need proper regulations.
Yeah, if you take the proper, appropriate precautions, nuclear is the way to go by far.
But what if there's like a tornado or something or a hurricane?
Well, I mean, you would put it underground. You would put it in some
You'd have to take all
extremely
that into
fortified
consideration.
thing. All of that has to be taken. That's the whole point. Like Fukushima.
And they didn't do that there.
Fukushima, yeah, no, that was the thing with it.
That's an insane thing. They just put in the middle of a. First and foremost, man, Japan, you're an island. You cannot have a nuclear reactor. Sorry,
That's
there's
so
water
funny.
everywhere. You
Right.
can't even put water on my iPhone, bro. What you mean? You can throw water on top of a nuclear plant? Of course,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go like, that's gonna go bad.
Well, I mean, I feel like definitely the way to go is just the two things is you focus on finding these solutions and you focus on being more in tune with nature, right? Like actually respect the fact that the tsunamis and the tornadoes can actually mess us up really, really bad, right? You respect that, figure out the solutions to avoid it, I think we'll be fine.
I would
You
add.
gotta-
I would add.
I'm an optimist.
I would
so-
add the antagonistic aspect of the forces that are directly working against that, and a keen attention to how to thwart that needs to be a part of that as well.
Oh, for
I think
sure.
we got this.
I think
I think we
we
got
can
this.
sign off simply, by just letting everyone know, man. It
Letting
starts.
everyone know.
Just go on a walk in the morning.
That's it. That's
just,
where it'll
just
start.
look at the leaves and the trees, and you'll appreciate that stuff, man. That's
And
it.
learn.
Touch
Learn.
grass.
Yeah, touch grass, man. We're
Touch
good to go,
grass.
bro.
All right.
All right, y'all.